I'm sure you've all heard the tale of Final Fantasy. Squaresoft was a prominent video game developer throughout the 1980s, but after a series of commercial failures by the second half of the decade, they were going out of business. But rather than give up on their dream of making video games, they decided they would give it one last shot, one final kick at the can, pour all of their hearts and souls into their masterpiece. And that masterpiece would be symbolically called Final Fantasy. Except no, it wouldn't. Apparently, that's not true. Apparently, they wanted to call it Fighting Fantasy, but that was taken, and they were afraid of getting sued. Thus was born one of the most ironic franchise names in all of video game history. It's also really warm in here. Editing magic. If I had to pick one word to describe Final Fantasy I, it would be cute. This is a tiny game. A teeny tiny little game that is trying to be big and epic. And does it succeed? Not really. This is the video game equivalent of a puppy that is trying to get a treat stuck under a cup by pushing it with his nose, you know? It's wholesome and entertaining, even though it doesn't really succeed at what it was trying to do. It does make sense that it is tiny though, because this game came out in 1987. The same year as movies like RoboCop, Predator, and one of my all-time personal favorites, Evil Dead 2. I will also quickly address that I will be playing the pixel remasters of these games, 1 and 4 or 5, or however far it goes with the pixel remasters. I looked on Wikipedia, and I was both frightened and confused by the fact that there are about 5 million different ports and remakes and remasters and 3D remakes of all of these games. So, to keep things consistent, I will be playing the pixel remaster of all of them. Because apparently, or at least according to both Reddit and Steam reviews, these are quite good. They are both faithful to the originals and well made. Which is basically what I'm going for. Faithful, aside from obviously the graphics, and I guess some minor quality of life stuff, but whatever. Also, they are on Steam, which is just convenient for video making purposes. And speaking of pixel remasters, I launched these games and ooh, the music, oh my goodness. It is lovely. It is a full orchestral remake of the original soundtrack, and I didn't listen to it. Nope. Found out pretty quickly in the menu there's an option to switch back to the original NES soundtrack, and that is what I stuck with the whole time.
This is brilliant, but I like this.
So we begin the game, and before I do anything, I am to create 4 characters. I create Valtteri, the fighter, reliable, consistent, good teammate, Max, the monk, who is highly skilled, he can carry the team, but, you know, he probably has some anger issues, maybe that's why he decided to become a monk. Kimmy, the white mage, just consistent, supportive element, always helping out the team, and finally Lewis, the black mage. And if you're following along with this reference that I'm trying to make, this is now becoming problematic.
Man, is this guy blind? What the is wrong with him?
So anyway, the game begins with a cutscene where it explains that you have to find and restore 4 crystals of the elements. So the king tells me that I have to save his daughter, because the bridge is broken, and he'll only repair it if I save his daughter, Sarah, which, first of all, not really a very fantasy name, is it? But second, what a jerk. You're a king, dude. You got responsibilities. This is the only bridge that connects the entire rest of the world to your kingdom, and you won't fix it until somebody saves your daughter. That is very selfish. Not the point. The point is, the king finishes his little speech, and I am then released into the world. And immediately, the biggest difference I've noticed between this game and Final Fantasy XVI, which I recently played, check out my video about that if you haven't yet, is the brevity of the story. Final Fantasy XVI is like 45 minutes of cutscenes, followed by a lengthy combat tutorial, followed by another hour of cutscenes before you even get to play the game. This game is like 6 lines of dialogue, and we're gone. I like it. Just let me play the game, please and thank you. So I set off with no other directions than to find Sarah. I wander around the town a bit, explore the shops, check out the inn, which at this point, I don't know what it does, so I sleep and accidentally spend some money. It heals your people, but, you know, I talk to some NPCs, but then there's nothing going on here, so I leave and enter the world. And my goodness, the world is huge, expansive, and I've got the breeze in my hair, and a sense of adventure overwhelms me. And also, where do I go? I don't know, I'll just go north, I guess. It's not a big section of the map yet, I don't think, so I'll find it eventually. Oh, it's right there. Yep, I found a ruined castle, and I was like, oh, I'll check that out. And I walk into the first door that I see, and it's the boss. Okay, we're getting right into it. So, I run up, and I engage Garland? I land a series of decisive blows, taking him by surprise, and then he turns around and he beats my ass. Oh my goodness. He immediately one-shot my first character on his first team, and I was like, oh dear. Oh, wait a second. I gotcha, Square. Me, with my Zoomer brain and all of my modern gaming sensibilities, was like, oh, it's a supposed to lose fight. I'm gonna lose, there's gonna be a cutscene where he, you know, somehow we escape, and then we'll fight him again later once we've pow. I've lost. Did I mention this game is old? Not in a bad way. I actually like this a lot. It's just I have to forget some of the modern, you know, gaming things that I just assume in my brain. So I reload. I start to walk back to town because I'm not really sure what to do, and then bam, random encounter. This game has random encounters, and somehow I did not get any on my way to the castle the first time. So that was a bit confusing, but now I get to experience what kind of revolutionary combat system Square were able to cook up in 1987. You mash the attack button. That's actually not fair. Early game, you mash the attack button. Once you start unlocking more spells and abilities, then it does get more interesting. You do basically always mash the attack button on your melee fighter guys, but spellcasters do require some thought. There are a surprising number of spells available in this game. There's quite a lot of them for both white magic and dark magic. White magic is supportive, all about healing and buffing your own party, and black magic is murdering stuff. Fun! Although at this point I don't actually really have any because spells cost fat stacks. Anyway, I wander around for a little bit, spend a few minutes beating up some, you know, goblins and stray dogs, and once I have acquired a few levels, I go back to Garland. And this time, I win! Yay! And also, shout out to Final Fantasy, smashing tropes by having me rescue the princess at the beginning of the game. So with Sarah rescued, we head back to the castle, and everyone's happy, and she gives me a lute. And then she says, oh my, what a, well, what was I talking about? So with the princess rescued, the king repairs the bridge. Thanks, mate. And we can finally set off. The world is now open and free to explore. And can I just a little side note, why is this cutscene like the longest and highest production value cutscene in the whole game? Whatever. So I am now able to set off to look for the crystals, and also this advisor guy tells me I should look for Lucan, who has ventured to the Crescent Moon, whatever that means. Oh, it's on the map. Oh, it's a lake. Very clever. I see what you did there. So I set off eastward, and I eventually run into a problem. I cannot get there. There are mountains and a river in the way, so that's lame. And now where do I go? There's a town right here, which is nice. And in that town, there's not a whole lot of interest except for some pirates. You beat up the pirates, and then the captain gives you his boat. Which, first of all, what a loser. Alright, you just accept defeat and give away your ship, the center of your whole piratey life, just like that. You suck. But now that I have a boat, I can travel the seas, and the world is now open and free to explore. I love sailing in this game. Just the bright blue oceans. The music is awesome, and a little detail that I really like is that the sails of your boat puff in beat with the music. That's awesome. I don't know if that's a remaster thing or if it always did that, but good little attention to detail. So I stumble upon another city, and why are you all Link? The Gathering of Links tell me that their prince has been cursed with eternal slumber, and that the only way that I can save him is by having a witch make a potion. But to get that witch to make a potion, I need to find her eye. Where am I going to find a single rock in this entire massive world? Oh, hey, there's a cave right there. So I enter the cave, and I'm just going to read you my notes for this part, all right? Yes, I do take notes for these. Professional journalism. Got boat. Very cool. Found Elf City. Link says I need Crystal Eye. Fuck this stupid bitch-ass cave. That is my verbatim words that I wrote there, which I think sums up my feelings pretty well. This cave made me realize something, which is that this game, Final Fantasy I, is more about preparation than strategy, I guess. It is about, did you bring enough supplies? Did you bring the right spells? There's not a lot you can do to adapt once you're in a battle. And I would now like to rant about random encounters. I hate random encounters. They are stupid. You're telling me that I'm walking around an empty field and I suddenly get jumped by 5 ogres and their dog. That's dumb. It makes exploring annoying and tedious, which is a problem in your exploring game, and they're always too easy, because they don't want to, drain all of your supplies, but they have to have something. I hate them. Now, I will say, this game, and the next couple, probably, get a little bit of a pass, because this is an NES game. And I get that they wanted to make this big open world adventure, and the NES will explode if there are more than 7 sprites on screen at a time. So this is kind of a clever way to do both. But just in general, I hate random encounters, and this cave is why. So I go into the cave, I start going around, fight some enemies, I make it all the way to the bottom floor, and I get destroyed. I barely survive, so I have to use basically all of my supplies to regen, and the next random encounter against these stupid fish guys, I get destroyed again. 3 of my party members died, and now it is only Lewis. And Lewis put the team on his back. Oh my goodness. He survived random encounter after random encounter. The MVP of the team, something Abu Dhabi 2021. Why am I making all these Formula 1 jokes in a Final Fantasy video? They say find your niche on YouTube. So we get back to town, and I purchase approximately 5 million health potions and Phoenix Downs. I then go back to the cave, and now I can beat it. At the end of the cave, I find the eye that... No, I found a crown. I don't know what to do with it, though. This is where I did get a little bit lucky, because I leave the cave, I had so many supplies, I was like, I'll take the scenic route back to town, maybe I can find something else interesting. And up north from the cave, I do find something interesting, a big ruined castle. There's a lot of ruined castles in this game. In the ruined castle is the Dark Elf Prince, or Dark Elf King, or whatever he calls himself, and I beat him up. And then he gives me the crystal eye. Wonderful. Now I can take the eye to the witch, which makes me a potion, which I can bring back to the Elf Prince. He gives me a key. Now, what am I supposed to do with this key? On my way through the horrible cave, I did find some doors that required a key to open. So I'm like, okay, maybe that's where, the plot takes place. It is not. There is some loot, and that's it. Well, there were some locked doors in the dwarf cave. Nothing. There were some locked doors in the Chaos Shrine. Nothing. And this is where I would like to complain for just a moment about how much this game loves not telling you what to do. Now, I get it. Games these days can be very handholdy. Final Fantasy XVI is just a straight line to the next cutscene. But there has to be some sort of in-between. This game, deadass, gave me a key and said, find the lock. I don't know if you've been paying attention to this video, but Christ, there are so many doors everywhere. And also, boobs. And if you looked at your second monitor because I said the word boobs, you have to subscribe now. Sorry, I don't make the rules. What was I talking about? Right, keys. I had to resort to the power of Google to eventually find the door that this key opens, which is a room in the very corner of the first castle. How would you find that? Like, besides just slamming your face into every single door in the game. I get that this came out in the 80s when most gamers were children, so you probably had a lot of time on your hands. I am an adult with a job, and this is stupid. Whatever. Inside that door, there are some explosives, nitro powder, which I then take to a dwarf who blows up the whole coast. Now the world is open and free to explore. I get ready to head off to the Crescent Moon that, again, the game told me about, but actually there's a town right here, so we'll stop there first. And wow, it's really depressing. Oh my god, everybody's so sad here. It sucks. The NPCs tell me that there is a vampire in a cave nearby who has been using the power of the Earth Crystal for nefarious reasons, and it's killing the land. So I should go stop him. This is exciting. This is the first I've actually heard of the crystals since I basically started the game. And as soon as I enter the cavern, oh my god, the music absolutely slaps. The cave music is so good. So I make my way through the Earth Cavern, I beat up the vampire, and then, surprise, he's not the real boss. There is a trap door behind him, which you have to go get a thing from a troll, but you go down the hatch, and there is the real boss, the Lich. Now I have not talked about the combat very much yet, because as of this point, there hasn't been much to talk about. But the boss fights in this game are awesome. The boss fights are sick, they are much harder than the random encounters, and they require actual strategy to beat. Before this, every fight is just mash the attack button, use highest level AoE spell that you have. Now, you have to take into account much more. You have to use buffs, debuffs, elemental weaknesses, still mashing attack on your fighter. This is great. I swear if they cut the rate of random encounters by 80%, but made them all actual fights, I mean, maybe it would suck. I'm not a game designer, but I feel like that would be better. So, you kill the Lich, shout out to his family, and you restore the power of the Earth Crystal. Hooray. 1 out of 4. Bam. From here, I can finally travel through the Crescent Lake, where I meet Lucan the Sage, and he doesn't do anything. It's really strange. He just stands there and is like, "My name is Lucan, the greatest sage in all the land," or whatever. And his buddy gives you a canoe. It's a bit odd, but now the world is open and free to explore. Stop me if you've heard that one before. You head pretty much straight for the Fire Cavern now, and this place is horrible. The entire thing is one giant maze filled with annoying enemies, and you have to play the floor as lava because the floor is lava. Anyway, another cool boss fight against Merilith, and then pretty much right next door there is an ice cavern. So I was like, ice crystal? But no.
Hey, you. You're finally awake.
This is where the game is stupid again. The ice cavern gives you a Levy crystal, which you then have to take to a specific spot in a specific desert where there is nothing else there. And then the Levy crystal transforms into an airship. Because of course it does. But now, you have the airship unlocked, and the world is open and free to explore. And up to the north, there's a whole nother continent to get ganked by ogres on. Wonderful. So I head up there, and I find another town, which is cool. They inform me that there is a ferry that has been sold into slavery, and there's a castle to the west. So I go to the castle, and this castle is a trial of courage for heroes. And it's a teleporter puzzle. I don't want to tell you how long I spent trying to do this, but it was too long. But you make it through, and you obtain the greatest symbol of courage, a rat's tail. You then have to take the rat's tail to a dragon, a big dragon on one of these little islands, and he is like, "A rat's tail. Truly, you are the most courageous in all the land. Here, let me upgrade your classes for you." So Valtteri the Fighter turns into the Knight, which is basically just a bigger version of the Fighter. Max the Monk turns into Max the Master. Appropriate, and again, basically just a powered up version of the Monk. Kimmy the White Mage turns into Kimmy the White Wizard, who now has access to all levels of spells. And Lewis, oh my Lewis, you've undergone quite the transformation, haven't you, buddy? I believe this is called the Michael Jackson career trajectory. So, I leave there, and after another quick Google search, which I don't even feel bad about this one, I find where the fairy is being kept. She's in a caravan, which is invisible at the very top of a desert with nothing else in it. This game is dumb sometimes. Once rescued though, the fairy gives me Oxyale, or Oxyale. Is this an oxygen-producing beverage, or is it a school for gifted bison? This is such a dumb joke. What am I doing with my life? So with the Oxgale, though, I am able to take a submarine to the Water Temple. And the Water Temple is cool, and you fight the Kraken, and then after the Kraken, you restore the Water Crystal. Bam, 3 out of 4. But this leads me to the stupidest part of the whole game. I just could not figure out what to do now, so I had to Google it again. And this is so obtuse that even after Googling it, and while currently writing it down, I can still hardly make sense of it. So I need to go to the Sky Dungeon to get the last crystal. The Sky Dungeon requires me to use a warp stone on a teleporter in the Mirage Tower. To get into the Mirage Tower, I need a bell from these other elves. But I can't speak to the other elves until I find the Rosetta Stone, which is in a chest in a completely optional part of the water dungeon. Then I take the Rosetta Stone to this random NPC who teaches me the elf language, and then I can go talk to them and get the bell. And then to get the warp stone, I have to go into a secret dungeon behind a waterfall where I find a robot who gives me the warp stone. Did I miss anything here? No, I think that's it. And how on earth are you supposed to figure any of this out on your own? And the worst part is that clearly I'm an idiot, because like millions of people figured this out on their own in the 80s. I don't know. Sky Dungeon. You know the drill by now. Random encounters, fat loot, beat boss. Restore the air crystal, and bam, 4 out of 4, game over. Game over, right? Why aren't the credits rolling? Is there a secret final boss? There's a secret final boss. This is where the game goes completely off the rails. So you have to go back to the Chaos Shrine and talk to some bats. The bats then inform me that they're actually elves who were transformed into bats by some mystical fantasy bullshit. And then I have to go back into the past 2,000 years to kill Satan. Okay, because apparently we've actually been stuck in a time loop this whole time. I hate time travel. It never makes sense if you think about it, and in this case, you don't even have to think about it very much for it to not make sense. I'll explain when we get there, though. So, you go into the past, and there's this giant dungeon that you have to make your way down, going down, 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 you know, like towards hell. Good symbolism game, I see what you did there. And then at this staircase, there's this orb. And isn't that the thing that was at the Earth dungeon? Oh. It's the Lich again. Are we Mega Manning this? Yeah, we're Mega Manning this. So I beat the Lich, and then move on to Marilith number 2, and she demolished me. It was not even close. I tried a couple times, and she continued to demolish me. And this is where I had to grind. Which I didn't necessarily feel great about. I don't like grinding. It's annoying. But I just couldn't win. So, I went back, and I walked around the Sky Dungeon for like an hour, beating up random NPCs, until my weakest character was level 40. And this was a good place to stop. I just kind of guessed, but at this point, I was able to beat the bosses, and clear the rest of the Wily stages, if you will, without too much trouble, but it also wasn't easy, so well balanced. After I clear all the Wily stages, though, I then get to the final boss, Garland again, except actually he's Chaos. He explains that he survived our initial encounter because the 4 fiends sent him back into the past using the power of the 4 elemental crystals. He then sent the fiends into the future from the past so that they could save him with the elemental crystals. But how did they save him if they're only there because they're in the future because he sent them from the past after they sent him to the past from the future? Does this make any sense? Probably not, but also time travel, so I don't know. Also, why can the elemental crystals suddenly control time? I'm probably overthinking this. I'm gonna have an aneurysm. Whatever. He's a really cool boss fight. He's challenging. He has so much health. Oh my god. Even my fighter was hitting like consistent 1,000 plus damage hits on him, and it still took a long time. But it was great. And then you beat him, and finally you actually beat the game. Wonderful. Roll credits. Actually, there's like another cutscene where it tries to explain all of the time travel stuff again, and it still doesn't make sense. And also, you won because of the power of friendship or whatever, but you beat the game. Roll credits. So, Final Fantasy 1 is actually very cool. There are parts of it that are tedious and annoying, and parts that don't make sense, and the whole time travel thing that the game just pulls out of absolutely nowhere, and then it doesn't make sense, bothers me more than it probably should. But overall, this game is cool. It does a lot with a little. It's also surprisingly long. It took me like 20 hours to beat this game, which is, you know, not a great sign for how long the rest of the series is going to take me, but whatever. And I think I kind of joked about it, how I kept saying, you know, the world is now free and open to explore. Perhaps the greatest strength of this game is the progression. Not of your characters, but of the world itself. You are constantly unlocking new items and modes of travel that open up new areas of the game. It's like a Metroidvania, except that term didn't even exist until like a decade after this game came out. But it's really cool. It's really excellent, actually. The combat is neat. The boss fights are good because they're not super easy and they require actual thought. The random encounters are boring. And yeah, this was a cool little look into the past. Would I recommend this game? I don't know. Maybe if you're like a big fan of the franchise and you just want to see where we started, it is pretty cool in that regard. But I mean, there's better times you could have playing video games if that's all you're looking for. So that's Final Fantasy. I liked it. If you haven't, please subscribe to my channel if you've made it this far. Clearly you're enjoying something I'm doing, so, you know, click the little button down there. And leave a comment if you've played this game before, and, you know, let me know your thoughts. And yeah, Final Fantasy 2 video will be out at some point. I haven't even started the game yet. God knows how long that one will take to beat, but such is life. Right, that does it for me. Goodbye.